talking about Mort, the fourth Discworld novel, and unfortunately my absolute least favorite. Not gonna lie, it was a struggle for me to finish this book. Yes, it was kind of painful for me to try and read this book, and I hate that that's the fact, but that's just, I would rather be honest about it, because I love the Discworld, but I don't love every single book within it. So with that out of the way, I'm still gonna recommend it because it's still a good book. Just because it doesn't suit me or my taste doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It isn't. It is well written. The story is fantastic. It is very interesting. The characters are interesting. There's just something about this book just doesn't vibe with me. This is my third time reading this book, and I still don't know what about it, what it is that just doesn't intrigue me, or you know, why I don't like it. Like, so this is the book Mort. And on the back cover, death comes to us all. When he came to Mort, he offered him a job. After being assured that being dead was not compulsory, Mort accepted. However, he soon found that romantic longings did not mix easily with the responsibilities of being Death's apprentice. So an interesting premise. This book, one of the protagonists is Death himself, and this is the book when we really get to know Death as a character, as a person. So I'm really sorry that I don't like it better than I do. The main character, however, is Mort, the nothing but elbows and knees young teenager who becomes Death's apprentice. So yes, so the main storyline is that Death, for some reason that I don't think that he understands himself completely, goes and finds an apprentice, Mort, who like every single protagonist so far, I believe, has he originates from the Ramtop. So Ramtops are just magical. They're just magical. And like every other apprentice, Mort starts out as clumsy, idealistic, in a way innocent, and yeah. This book does explore a lot of things about death, many theories, many beliefs, religion, what people think happens after they die. And the thing about the Discworld that I absolutely adore is that whatever you believe happens to you after you die is the truth. If you believe you go to heaven, you go to heaven. If you believe you go to hell, you go to hell. If you believe that you pass on, you pass on. If you believe that there is nothing, there is nothing. If you believe that that you will reincarnate, you will reincarnate. And one of the more interesting characters, like, there are so many interesting characters, and most of them are people we only meet once because they are characters that Mort meets in his line of business. Like the wit's goody hamstring. She's adorable. I love her. I love her. Or the apple lopsang, who is stuck in a circle of reincarnation. We do meet him later on in later books, but we have our dear Mort who really grows up over this book. We do meet Isabel. I'm gonna say Isabel, Death's adopted daughter, who is, she's a romantic soul. Her favorite hobby that only Mort finds out about is to go into the library of books that, or no, Death's library that is full of books. How to explain? So Death's library has all the books that contain the lives of people. Not only does Death have the timer, the hourglass that every person's life is measured by, or that tells them how long life is. I'm stumbling. How much life a person has left for him to go and pick them up, because death doesn't kill you. Death comes and picks you up. But he also has a library of the books where people's lives are written down. So every person on a disc has a book in his library where their life is being written down as it happens, and I love that concept. So Isabel's hobby includes going into a library when no one knows except Mort, because he finds out because he kind of gets blamed for it. And she goes and finds the biographies of tragic young ladies, rom romantic heroines, ladies who died for love, all that. So she's very romantic. There is a fantastic banter scene between Isabel and Mort that is very, very Shakespearean. It is really rather, I think, much ado about nothing. Oh, it's been so tragic. It's been so long since I read Shakespeare, so I think it's much ado about nothing. Now, I'm not really talking about the storyline because, as I said, I can gush about this book, but I have a really hard time just defining it somewhat, because so over the course of this book, Mort messes up, because otherwise we wouldn't have a story. Like, it isn't enough that he is Death's apprentice, he has to mess up. And the way that he messes up is that he messes with history by trying to save someone who was meant to die. That would be Princess Kelly. Princess Kelly of Stow-Lat, or the Stow Plains. And, I mean, not surprisingly, like, early in the storyline, we meet briefly her father, King Olar, the bastard of Stow-Lat, whose assassination was ordered by his brother, the Duke of Stow-Heled. Like, that doesn't surprise anyone. Yes, like, the Duke of Stow-Heled has apparently been murdering his way up to ascension in just the past year or so. I'm reading over my notes, and I do notice that I wrote down Death's love for cats. On pages 26 to 27, there's a tragic scene of drowned kittens. So someone apparently took a litter of kittens, put them in a sack with a brick, and put them down in a water bath. And Death loves cats. He despises anyone who kills cats. I've also written down here, page 24, footnotes. So in this book, we really start with the footnotes that Terry Pratchett was absolutely fond of. In the footnotes, we get like historical context, fun little side bits, interesting little things. So in at least the earlier Discworld novels, we got a lot of footnotes, and I'm used to them. I love them. Kind of miss them from later books, but On page 30, listen, this is my third time reading this book. So Mort asks how Death gets all those coins that he's paying with, like everything that, like the curry that they eat, the new clothes that he gets from Mort so that he's at least presentable for the job, all that kind of stuff, and he keeps paying with a lot of coin. So Mort asks him, how does he get them? And Death answers in pairs. And it's only just now, when I'm rereading this book for the second time, that I realized what that means. I'm embarrassed that it took me this long. So that is a reference to an age-old custom where people put coins on over the eyes of corpses so that the eyes wouldn't... Well, let's just say that the added weight would keep the eyes closed during the ceremonies and the funerals, because sometimes in the olden times it would take a little while for the funeral to get going, because, you know, situations change over the centuries, and putting coins over the eyes just made sure that it wasn't as creepy. That's the short of it. I mean, it does go in. You can definitely find historical notes where it goes into much more depths, but I'm talking about Mort, not Death customs. So how does Mort manage to mess things up? Well, Death sends him off to go collect 3 souls on his own. That would be the witch Goody Hamstring, the Abbot Lopsang, who is experienced, and then Princess Kelly, whose time is up. But Mort kinda has fallen in puppy love with her, and he's a teenager. He is ignorant of what that would what changing history would mean, and he goes and does, which means that, well, not only does he cause a rift in history that history does endeavor to fix itself. The other after the other effect is that Kelly, she was meant to die. So in reality, she is dead. Although in factuality she isn't. She's still alive. So this is causing an issue with history, not only because she's supposed to be dead, but also because in people's minds she is. So other people are struggling with accepting that she's there, and they kind of can't because she's not supposed to be. I mean, it makes sense in the story. Mort realizes when he goes into Death's library and finds her book and reads her autobiography and what effect her death was actually supposed to have. It's tragic that a 15-year-old girl was, had to die, but her bastard of an uncle was actually going to have a positive effect. Which kind of sucks, but that's how history sometimes is. Sometimes you need not so nice people to have positive effects. So while Mort is trying to fix his mistake, or trying to realize whether he should try to fix his mistake, Death kind of goes off on a vacation, because Death is tired of being Death and wants to try something else. He goes fishing, he goes drinking, he goes gambling, he goes partying. And then he goes and takes up a part-time job at Haruka's House of Ribs in Ankh-Morpork. And he really finds himself there. Like, he is a cook. He cooks everything. Even things that shouldn't be, that just don't exist. And because he has complete rule of the kitchen, he lets cats in. Which is foreshadowing for the future. Because Death is a catman. But the effect of this is that Death is steadily unbecoming Death, and Mort is becoming Death. Because it doesn't really matter who does the job as long as there is someone filling the role. That is a theme that we will explore more in Reaperman, which honestly I think does it a little bit better. I don't know, there's just something about this book that just doesn't sit right. Like, it's a good book, but it doesn't vibe. So I struggled with the first third of this book. About the midway point, it was a little easier, and the last 50 pages, those are the most interesting. Like, I love the ending. So Mort and Isabel go off to try and save Princess Kelly while history is closing in on her, which means that it will she will be erased from history. Albert, this manservant, is revealed to be someone quite ancient and quite powerful. He is in fact Alberto Malich, the founder of Unseen University. An extremely powerful wizard who is technically over 2,000 years old. And so he wants Death to be himself again, and does his part to try and, ensure that, even though he's kind of acting against our heroes. But because of Albert, we get to meet Neil Labrador and Rainswind again, so that's a plus. They make a cameo. And it all culminates in a duel between Death and Mort. Now, guess that we know the ending because, well, let's just say that one of the main characters, for example, the main character in Hogfather is Death's granddaughter. And how in the world does Death have a granddaughter if this ends badly? This ends. I love the ending. It's a little, it does turn a little flat, but I do still appreciate it and I like it. The duel between Death and Mort, I just listen when they are dueling in the Hall of Hourglasses, and that duel kind of also shows how they can you know, this kind of salty issue with Prince Kelly because of side effect, that is because of death, because he really should have watched that, Scythe. Is it not my favorite book in the series? I did struggle with rereading it, but I do still have to recommend it. It is still a good book. So yay! I do appreciate the fact that I did reread it, even though I really don't want to read it again. Maybe another 10 years, I don't know. But I do appreciate the fact that it exists. I appreciate the story, and there are things about this book that I do adore, but it's still my least favorite. However, I still remember this story. I did give it 4 stars at Goodreads years and years ago. I still give it 4 stars because it is a good story. Just because I don't appreciate it doesn't mean that it isn't good. I prefer if I was able to give it 3.5. That would be more like my alley, but at least I remember more. For some reason, years and years ago, I gave Unseen Academicals 5 stars. But in the years since, I haven't been able to remember the title of Unseen Academicals until I started doing the series, because I was doing the series. Up until just this year, that book was always that football book. The Brain, ladies and gentlemen. Still recommend it. Yes. So the 5th book is Sorcery, and that one, yes. I'm kind of looking forward to that one because I cannot remember last time I read it. But it kind of continues the ideas and kind of somewhat the themes of equal rights, but So in Equal Rights we have Askarina Smith, who is the first and so far the only female wizard on the disc. She is the 7th daughter of a 7th son. No, wait, sorry. The 8th daughter of an 8th son. I keep confusing with Earth. But the thing is, an 8th son of an 8th son is guaranteed to be a wizard. So what happens when you have the 8th son of an 8th son of an 8th son? You get book number 5. So, I will hopefully see you then. Okay, take care. Bless, bless.